Hail, hail, the Celtics are here, and what the hell do we care now? We've went to the baddies place, we've got the 3 points, and now we're in the international break. The transfer window's closed, the Champions League group stage has been drawn, and it's just about that time where we can put our feet up, enjoy being Celtic fans, and look at everything that's before us and what is yet to come. I'm Quinny, obviously here for the podcast again, and joined by Josh. Josh, good to see you, my man.
Good to see you too. Good to be back. Obviously, like you say, it's a bit of a break in the season right now, which is obviously good because it's been quite hectic at the start. We had transfer window last week was very busy. Obviously, the Champions League draw and then the derby, which is crucial for us. We went and got the 3 points, which now we can, like you said, put our feet up somewhat and enjoy some of the international football. Watch how our players do when they're playing for their countries. But crucial to get that win at the weekend, and we can look forward to what's to come now. I think that was a mini cup final for Brendan and the team at the weekend. Like he said, it was the first kind of big win for that group of players. So obviously we had 9 or 10 new arrivals over the summer. So it was great for them to go and get the victory. Like toughest away venue. We've played that all season. We probably might play that. Obviously no fans. So great to get the win, and now we can look forward to what's to come over the next coming weeks for the Champions League.
Definitely. And the derby was one of those games where we were all a bit nervous going into it. There was a bit of anxiety, a bit of unease throughout the Celtic support. We all kind of hoped and expected a win and a victory and not to lose, hopefully. But if a somewhat negative result did arise, we would have all said, seen it coming, and we all then would have spent this time maybe, reevaluating the first chapter of the season. Yeah. But yeah, I think it was a great victory, a great kind of sum of their parts effort for the game, because we could pick apart the match itself, where it was kind of won and lost in different areas, but definitely like Celtic as a team really showed up in a big way, and like the manager said in the post match, he asked for men to come out on the pitch, and we definitely got that from everyone out in the park, and it was a really enjoyable result as far as 1-0s go.
Definitely, I think the team put in a great performance. Like you said, going into the game, not many people were confident of going and winning, but we did just exactly that. And the team used to come out as a bit surprised on the live stream last week for the Champions League draw, convinced Nat Phillips was going to play after he signed, but he wasn't even in the squad, which was a bit annoying. But Scales came in alongside Gustav Lagerbielke, and the Irishman put in a brilliant shift. He was tremendous. He won the Man of the Match award. He's here, there and everywhere at the back, and he was very, very, very good. So I would be surprised if he get dropped going back after the international break now. But on the whole, Celtic were tremendous. I feel like just defensively we held out so strong. Joe Hart made a couple of good saves. As much as I've criticised him on here before, I think the last couple of games against St Johnstone at home and now Rangers at Ibrox, he's done brilliant to kind of securing us the win type performances. If we didn't have him in goals, we might not have kept clean sheets in both games. I think Alistair Johnston has played well as well since he's came back from injury. That's another positive, having him back. And the midfield was really good. We voiced our concerns playing Cal McGregor, David Turnbull and Matthew O'Reilly all together, but I think they've done really well. Matt O'Reilly, I think, was one of his best performances in a Celtic shirt to date. He was absolutely terrific. The amount of interceptions, tackles, and he made the assist for Kyogo's goal as well. Cal McGregor put in a performance of a brilliant Celtic captain. We knew he had to turn up if Celtic were going to play well. There was concerns of late over his performance levels. He wasn't really doing too well at the start of this season, but he came in and he was absolutely excellent. Done really well at the base of that midfield. I think there was an instance in the first half for Hearts in our mouths where he done a Cruyff turn inside the Celtic box. But McGregor was excellent. And then Maeda, I think, put in a great shift as well on the left. So did I think Abada was unfortunate to be withdrawn when he was. He was playing well, and obviously Kyogo, we know what Kyogo can do. I feel like the goal was like, I didn't even celebrate it because I was convinced when I first saw it that it was offside. And then obviously seen the replay, and then he was a mile onside. You can talk as much about decisions or whatever as you want. As Jock Stein said many, many years ago, if you're good enough, the decisions from the referee don't matter. And obviously our opposition weren't good enough, and we were brilliant, and we won the game. And now it's great to have that 4-point gap going into the first international break of the season. Last year it was a 5-point gap after we beat Rangers 4-0 at Celtic Park, but I'm sure if you said to anyone at the beginning of the season, would you take a 4-point lead at the first international break in every round, you'd bite your hand off for it. And it was just disappointing we drew that St Johnstone game where we would have been 6 clear now, but you can't change things, and it was no one was expecting that. I think on Sunday night we were all going to be sitting in our houses a wee bit disappointed, but we weren't. And is brilliant. And obviously we know fans as well for Celtic to go there and just silence the place like they did. And obviously you heard the boos at half time, you heard the boos at full time. It was a really satisfying feeling. And I think the manager was very pleased with the performances. Like you said, he wanted the boys to play like men. They did play like men. Everyone was stood up and was counted. We had concerns going into the game, but they were quickly banished. And I think this group of players now, after that win, they've got the first notable victory under the manager, and altogether they can now move forward and look forward to more games of that ilk, Champions League games, cup finals, semi-finals, which is only positive. And overall, very, very happy with the result. Obviously, now that we're sitting top in Motherwell, are our closest challengers. Never mind Rangers.
Yeah, we do. That's one of the beauties of the derby. That, when it pans out this way, is seeing all the anger from the teddy bears and the cream buns when they're all losing their plot, going outside the stadium, and everything else. Which is, it's just part of the drama that goes around the derby and part of the pain that you inflict with the victory. And like, I was experiencing a lot of pain in the first half, like for all of our dominance and all the shapes we were building and all the chances we were creating. And as much as I was getting really frustrated by it, I thought it was a great example to show, for Kyogo, the first two chances, he doesn't pass anyone in. He takes too many touches. He takes the shot. It goes wide. His goalkeeper saves it. And we're all very frustrated with him. And I heard somebody say, I can't remember who it was. It was somebody maybe on the radio or whatever, but I heard somebody, like a pundit or something, say, they think he's shot because he thinks he's offside and he's just saying, screw it, and taking the shot.
Yeah.
But with me watching that, see, as soon as the ball came through to him, the thing to do, because you're playing as a striker with somebody like Kyogo, a guy that is going to take like 5-6 shots a game, he's playing a kind of chess match with the goalkeeper for how many touches he thinks he's got, so he can set himself up and before Kyogo's going to take the shot or whatever. So in that instance, when it's a quick turnover, I think the way Kyogo plays and the way strikers like him play is that next shot he was always going to be taking first time or doing something just to mix it up, as it were. Yeah. And that's really where the goal comes from, because it's powerful. It's goes quick enough, it's accurate enough, but the goalkeeper's stranded between places and he's in the wrong position and he's just dead in the water. He's as if he's not there, So I thought it was a great goal, and Kyogo really did. That goal is going to be one that we see a few times over because of, like you say, you just hear it whack off the net. You hear the metal shaking around. You hear the disdain around the stadium, and then it develops into the VAR, into that kind of that sweet kind of. They all cheer it because Ibrox has never had a VAR decision.
I know.
They just. It's like muscle reflex to them all, and So I definitely agree that for all the players involved in the game, the manager, it'll be good for him just because it is like second time in the chair, and there is that whole, never go back kind of thing that's always hanging around these situations. Brendan Rodgers and Celtic in particular to one side. So it's just that kind of proof of concept coming back that this is going to work this time. Of course it is. And we're not as far off as maybe the last two games would have allowed us to maybe worry about, which was nice to see. Because again, so glad to hear this come out of the manager. And in a very nice way, it must be said as well, but him pointing out quite clearly to everyone that will listen after the game, like, this is like the fifth choice defence. We're not got our best midfielder either, and like the front three hasn't really played. There's a lot of things going on in the team where that's like, hey, even just natural progression of guys returning to training, the team's got levels to go still. And that performance for me really makes the Champions League group maybe a wee bit more like, let's go for it, man. You know.
That's true. Certainly, like, we were with it, like, when you actually think about it, we were without our first choice centre back, our second choice centre back. We were without one of our best midfielders and arguably one of our best technically gifted players, Rio Hatate, and we managed to still go into Ibrox and put in a performance like we did. Even your right back, Alistair Johnston, he's just come back from a good couple of month injury, and he's managed to come in and put in a performance like that as well. Genuinely, the players that were played on the park were so brilliant, and Liam Scales is a fifth choice centre back putting in a performance like he did. No one would have expected that from him, yet he did, and he was absolutely excellent. Like you said with the goal, like, I feel like Kyogo, like you said, the one that was cleared off the line by Goldson, he was running in on goal, like, he kind of hesitated about the decision. I feel like maybe that's played on his mind, and maybe he's like, the next chance I get, I'm gonna take it first time. And he did that, and like you said, it was an absolutely terrific goal. I don't know, like if he thought he was offside, because like when you see him running away celebrating, he wasn't really convinced in his celebrations. He was kind of looking around to Abada like, well, what's going on here? But Brendan was certainly assured of it. He's seen him fingers to the sky, and obviously the goal went in. But I think the goal came just at the right time for us, right on half time. Like I think it was about 30 seconds later, the half time whistle was blown. It'd been interesting to see if the boos were still there, if Kyogo hadn't scored that goal and it was goalless at the break. But listen, we shouldn't really care too much about that. We should kind of focus on ourselves. And Kyogo, just absolutely terrific goal that you could argue it could come out goal of the season, just in terms of the stature of the goal, like the match it was scored in. It was scored at Ibrox. Celtic had no fans, and it won us the game. So that was, and he now has, I think it's something like 6 goals in 5 games in Glasgow derbies now. Obviously, his first kind of year and a half at the club, he never managed to score in one, but he's certainly making up for lost time now. He's the go-to man in big games, and hopefully, I think we said it off air, like in the Champions League now, it's Kyogo's chance to really show what he can do. He's never scored in the Champions League. We only scored 2 goals of our own in it last season, Jota and Giakoumakis. So hopefully, he can get himself on the score sheet, and we'll be looking to do well in the competition now. Like you said, like that performance, I said it as well, like to something my dad when I was watching the game, like you could see that team putting in a performance like that away in Europe, away at Feyenoord, like holding out for the majority of that second half. We didn't have too many chances of our own. I think the Abada one, where Butland tips it round the post. I think Odin Holmes shot, maybe it won the counter attack with I think that's the only couple of chances we had, and apart from that, we were absolutely pounded and we held out so well, and that's very encouraging. Like the team, we're not used to seeing them cave in situations like that, but despite the managerial change, it's good to see that will to win still there in that kind of champions era. We are the champions. You're not going to beat us so easily, and they certainly won't be easily. So hopefully we can take that now into the Champions League. Obviously, the opponents are going to be of a much greater ability than what the opponents were in Sunday. So obviously European pedigree, Champions League pedigree. We know the opposition Sunday weren't. So hopefully we can take that forward now. But and as well, hopefully we'll get players back for the Champions League. Like great to see Carter Vickers back fit soon, hopefully, and Rio Haddadi as well. And if sooner we get them back, the better for us.
Yeah, big time. And it would be remiss of me not to mention Liam Scales like you have as well, because Scales was very impressive to me in the match as well, very calm and composed. And it's one of those ones where I think it's like we want Carter Vickers back, like you said. You know, Lagerbielke looked decent enough, minus the 2 hospital moments, you know, where it's like he's just went MIA on the pitch. And, you know, I liked Navrachi a lot when he came in, you know, by all accounts. So I think it's like one of these problems where, you know, the manager all of a sudden, if you look at the whole squad, you even put that Nat Phillips in, who's now in on loan to play in this position, you know, like I'm really hopeful that they kind of, you know, we've seen the bottom layer of the squad in some, you know, in the defence, probably the weakest part of the team, come out in a really important match. And, you know, Liam Scales, I hope, rises through those kind of layers in the squad, hopefully, you know, because that's just the Celtic way. We love seeing guys like that. We're so happy to see Ralston and Taylor come into fantastic form over the last 2 seasons. And, you know, players have their limits in the squad. Some of them don't, which is cool. And players will become what they become. But it's great to see somebody like Liam Scales. And we've not even mentioned Welsh, obviously, because he's injured also. You know, so really great to see a great performance from Scales, a worthy man of the match. And it caught my ear earlier when you said you would be surprised to see him dropped after this international break. So do you think you'll retain a spot?
Personally, I think if someone puts in a performance like that in the derby at Ibrox, helps to clean sheet, gets man of the match, it'd be very surprising to see them dropped, especially when the first game back is Dundee at home. So I feel like he probably will start that game. I think it's probably his place to lose now, to be honest. I'd say it's more likely to see Lagerbielke come out than Scales at the minute. But I guess you never know with Brendan. I was convinced Nat Phillips was going to start the weekend, and he wasn't even in the squad. So you never know. You can't predict the team selection at times. But it would be interesting. I hope he does keep his place because, like you say, he's a very likeable guy. He's Irish. He's a good Celtic man. He knows what the club means to us, and he certainly showed that at the weekend. I think he was excellent. Even like last season, he did play against Rangers and contribute to wins and score against them for Aberdeen. So he's no stranger to playing against them. But at the same time, it's totally a different dynamic when you're in the derby. It's 100 miles an hour, and he showed why he could put in that performance, and he was brilliant. In all honesty, like before he played that game, there's not many instances where we've thought Liam Scales could do that. I think he scored against Dundee United a couple of seasons ago up at Tannadice, but apart from that, he's not done
from left back.
From left back, that's true, versatile. Maybe that's a position you could see him in. I think Alessandro Bernabé played very well when he came off the bench at the weekend.
And he also played left back against Real Betis as well.
He did.
Liam Scales.
Yep, he did actually. So he was signed as a left back because we only had Taylor at the time. I think we had Taylor and Adam Montgomery, and then obviously Scales come in. But listen, when he was in Ireland, he was playing as a left centre back in a back three for Shamrock Rovers. So he does have that versatility, and the fact he's left footed as well really aids us. If I'm correct, he's the only left footed centre back in the squad. Well, Kobayashi, but we've not really.
I think he's at least handy on both.
Yeah, Navrosky's handy on both. Yeah. But no, Scales, very pleased with him, and he's another member of the squad now that we know can do that. I don't know. Do you think it was a one-off performance? I don't really think so.
I think domestically you can get that out of Scales. Yeah. You know, the guy's like 24 or something. Yeah, I mean, he's not exactly past it. He's not a kid either. Like you say, good season at Aberdeen, and he's had some minutes and experience in the hoops. You know, around that side. So like he's underdeveloped at this point. You know, but like it's clear to see. I think like guys like Ralston. You know, like Welsh guys have places in the squad, and maybe he can exceed that ceiling that I'm or not even ceiling them, but just that frame that I'm putting around it at the moment. But like, you know, I would probably agree with you as a coach and a manager. It would be hard to drop somebody after man of the match clean sheet away at Ibrox, particularly at home to Dundee in the next game. There's not much jeopardy on that. But that maybe brings us into team selection questions for Dundee, which we'll save for next week, I suppose, because the Champions League fixtures were definitely probably the next thing on people's mind, you know, in and around this fixture. So it feels the natural kind of segue to move us into, you know. But Lazio, Feyenoord, and Atletico Madrid, three very illustrious names throughout European football. Three names we're all very familiar with. We know exactly where they are. You know what they look like, and you know what they sound like, and you know, even if you don't watch Italian, Dutch, and Spanish football, you'll have an idea of what they're going to be bringing to the party, which should be good fun. I know we've did the live stream and all that kind of stuff on the channel or whatever, but Josh, just what your outlook on the group and first thoughts and all that kind of stuff, and then we'll get into the fixtures.
I think when we done the live stream last week, we were very pleased at the draw. I feel like there was much worse groups we could get in there. There was probably a better group we could have got. We were hoping for Group B, the PSV Arsenal group, but we can't complain. We've had some horror European draws in the past, and I think it's been kind to us this season. They're not teams that are absolute world beaters that you're going to ship 5 or 6 goals to. The likes of Barcelona, PSG have handed us out in the past, but at the same time, the teams I think we can compete against, particularly Feyenoord and Lazio. I feel like we could do very well. Atletico is probably the toughest team in the group, but listen, it's a group we can get out of, whether it be second or third or even first. I heavily doubt we'll get first, but if we can secure Europe after Christmas, I feel like that would be a success. And overall, pleased with the group, to be honest. I think it's teams we've not really seen at Celtic Park in recent years, apart from Lazio. Atletico Madrid, few fans have seen them. Feyenoord, few fans have seen them, and it's great places to go for away days as well. Rome, Madrid, and Rotterdam. So pleased with the draw on the whole, and the fixtures. I think the fixtures have been kind to us as well. We'll get onto that later. But away to Feyenoord first, and then home to Feyenoord last. So should be interesting there. But overall, pleased with the draw. We've not had Barcelona again. You know what I mean? We've not had PSG again, which is good. So we'll take it. If you offered someone that before the draw, they'd bite your hand off for it, I feel like. So.
Yeah, Atletico Madrid's got to be a top contender for the pot one team that you want. You know, like least likely to embarrass you. Yeah, but you're probably not going to get much out of them. You know, that's kind of the way I look at it. You know, any goals will be hard fought and hard earned. You know, and keeping the goals out is not going to be easy either against them. But the Lazio one is one of the first ones I've seen a lot of fans reacting to, because right after the draw, Lazio played Napoli, and I think a lot of people tuned into it on BT Sport or whatever it's called nowadays, TNT or whatever. And for if you watch that game, I watched the highlights of it. I didn't watch all of it, but very good game for Lazio. But under Mauricio Sarri, like, it is just Sarri ball. You know, they like to counter attack. That front three are all like strikers. They're all going to be clinical and get into the final third very often. In the midfield, have this kind of balance, and they'll make substitutes to maintain it through the game and whatever. But Napoli, although they did win the league last year, they've changed manager. Their manager's now the Italy coach, and the manager they've got now is a guy that's not really come into much fanfare. He's divided his opinion, and they've lost some players also to Bayern Munich and one or two others. So, like, it's not like, oh, they've beat Napoli, they must be like, running for the Scudetto this year or whatever because they lost the first 2 games of the season. So, like, as much as you might watch Lazio and you'll get a flavour of how they're trying to play, I wouldn't worry about the level that they're playing at any differently after watching the Napoli match, if you get me, because I say Napoli isn't exactly the beacon of success at this precise moment in time. Atletico Madrid, I think, maybe is something that maybe a few more people are familiar with, some players and what they're made of, like Griezmann's and a few other guys, but we're definitely all looking at the Feyenoord game as one of the teams that we should be going against. The Feyenoord have been doing really well on the European front for the last 2 or 3 seasons, with appearances in semi-finals and finals, Conference League, Europa League, going deep in the competitions, winning knockout games, etc. And they've been trading in the market, selling players, buying players very effectively for about 5 or 6 years on this current kind of cycle they're on. But they have sold quite a bit of talent this summer. They've sold their best midfield. Szymanski's went to Turkey, Kokchu's went to Portugal, and they sold Danilo, who was like actually a big part of their squad. They sold him to some rubbish team and can't remember where they play. Somebody's team somewhere. And they've sold 1 or 2 other players that were playing for them last year, and they're relying on a lot of guys that have high talent, have high potential, but there's a lot of guys in that squad that are a bit younger and a little bit green behind the gills. But a lot of that squad has played in European finals and semi-finals, won the league in Holland, won the cup in Holland as well. So they're definitely not a write-off in that respect, but it feels like it's definitely going to be much more of a level playing field than it should in terms of like, who we're facing and such. So away to Feyenoord in the first game is definitely a game of, I think Celtic fans will be kind of looking at and thinking we should be going in and getting 3 points. But when, around that, Josh, what other games do we have in the league? What's kind of around that Feyenoord match?
So I think around that Feyenoord match, we're at home to Dundee, obviously first. Then we have Feyenoord away on the Tuesday night, and then on the Saturday, early kick-off, we're away to Livingston. So we all know what Livy away is going to bring. It's not bad. It's decent. Then obviously, I think the Feyenoord game, going to look for 3 points there, I think, I don't know if it's over-optimistic or maybe it's just the history of Celtic away in Europe over the past kind of 5 years, 6 years, where we've constantly went over, we've took an early lead and then mistakes have cost us. Obviously, we have some outliers to that, like the Anderlecht game under Brendan, where we won 3-0 away from home over in Belgium. So maybe we could be looking for a similar performance to that. Obviously, Feyenoord at the weekend, I think they won 6-1 or something against Utrecht, and a certain Vasilis Barkas was in goals for the opposition. And apparently, so I looked at his rating on an app that I have, like FOTMob. I don't know if anyone uses that, or if it's even accurate, but he had a rating of 3.5 in the game, and he made an error that led to a goal for Feyenoord. So, despite a recent upturn in form over in Greece, the big man has not done too well in that game. So after Livy away, we've got Motherwell at home, and then we've got Lazio at home in the midweek. It's Motherwell away, then Lazio at home, then Kelly at home. So that's not too bad as well. The one that does give me the worry for kind of clashes is we've got on a Sunday afternoon we've got Hearts away, and then on the Wednesday we've got Atletico at home. Then on the Saturday we've got Hibs away. So that's going to be a tough 6 days for us. Certainly there. 2 trips to the capital, then at home to Atletico. Obviously Atletico's the back-to-back game. We've got them away as well. Before them we've got County away, and then after them we've got Aberdeen at home. That's not too bad. And then only annoying thing is as well, we've got a kind of tough run of 3 games in the middle of the group. Atletico at home, Atletico away, then Lazio away. Lazio away. Before Lazio, we've got Motherwell at home. Then after we've got St Johnstone away. That's not too bad. Then the final game, Feyenoord at home. I think everyone's looking at that. It's going to be the big showdown at the end of the group. It's could decide our fate and could decide our European campaign. We've got Kelly away before it, and then we've got Hearts at home after it. So the fixtures around it aren't the worst. The Hearts and Hibs games around the Atletico at home is the toughest, but at the end of the day, if you're in the Champions League, you've got to be ready to fight in games like this and have a tough run of fixtures like this. And at the end of the day, it's why we have a big squad like we do. We've got a good 3 or 4 players in each position on the park, so it's going to be utilised. Obviously, without the League Cup, that's one less competition we have to worry about. But at the same time, if you want to be competing with the best in Europe, you have to be able to manage a tough fixture schedule like we're going to have. And we Celtic have done it in the past. Like, we've kept consistency in the league. Last season when we were in the Champions League, I think there was only one game, the St Mirren away game, that was in between a European match where we'll drop points and lost in. So, yeah, but the squad are definitely capable of going through that run of fixtures. feel like the fixture run's been kind to us as well. I think we've got the toughest tie back to back. Then obviously Feyenoord first and last, which could be 6 points potentially, and then Lazio. Like, listen, Feyenoord away first. If you go and win that game, like we never know how Celtic are going to do. Say you win, say you get a draw, and you've got Lazio at home second, and then Atletico at home. Those are two games. I think Lazio at home is more likely to get something out of than the Atletico game. But if you did get a result against Lazio, say you win at Feyenoord, then you get a draw to Lazio or a win against Lazio, you're sitting pretty first two games in. As much as we like to be kind of optimistic, it's going to be a tough task. But in Atletico at home, you never know if the squad are high on confidence. They're doing pretty well, and you go to Atletico at home, you never know what can happen. Atletico win, Lazio will be giving me the fear, but the last game against Feyenoord at home should be really good. But the fixtures have been kind to us. I would say the group's been kind to us.
Yeah, when you're going through that, that's exactly what I'm thinking. Those first two games, like, it's great. I think that we've just had the derby. It's a wee bit annoying that this international breaks maybe now interfered. We'll talk about some of the guys that are away and whatever as well. But playing Dundee is a good get together match again. Yeah. Get the squad back together, and then it's just like derby mode again.
Yeah.
Away to the Feyenoord. Also we'll have away support, which will be good. But back into derby mode because Feyenoord away is going to be an arena as well. No two ways about it. Yeah. So. It's good that we just had that derby result performance, atmosphere to kind of train the guys. I know I use the word train kind of loosely. I think you know what I mean. Yeah. And I think then rolling that straight into like Lazio again, I think that's probably the two best fixtures you could have hoped for right at the beginning. Because if we do get something positive away to Feyenoord, you're then looking at the second best home fixture, which, there is only 3 games, so that's not saying much, but that's decent. And also, we're saving the best for last on the fixture calendar, so so I quite like the way that's panned out. I think it gives us kind of good hope, and I'm with you, man. Like, if imagine we are going into match day 3 with 6 points, like, we will be dreaming about dreams. Yeah. Like, that's what we'll be doing,
especially because... See, if you win the first 2 games, right, you're in 6 points. And then this is all hypothetical, wishful thinking. You can say what you want. But if you go into that third game, you've got Atletico Madrid at home. We know what Celtic Park can be like on a European night. And if we've just won against Lazio at home, everyone's going to be dreaming of going into that Atletico game and taking something from it. And who knows what Brendan can come up with. Box office Brendan, can he go in? And if we beat Atletico Madrid, you're sitting in 9 points. We're probably this could come back to bite us in future, but we do love to dream. We do love to be optimistic on this podcast, and
there's nothing wrong with that.
I know there certainly isn't. There certainly isn't. And the team are capable. The team are capable. I feel like of going into Europe and doing something. We say it every year, but you just want them to. You're urging them to. I think that's a really good chance. Feyenoord away to start us off. It's by no means going to be a tough away game. The Keep's a great stadium. At least we're going to have supporters though, and you never know if the team can go there and secure a match day 1 victory. I feel like that would do worlds of good for their confidence levels in Europe and the Champions League. I'd like to see Kyogo get off the mark in the Champions League as well. That'd be great to see. We need some big performances from Joe Hart. We're going to need them. We've had them in St Johnstone at home and Rangers away, but he needs to transform that form into Europe now, and hopefully doesn't make any silly mistakes like he did last season against Leipzig away. I think he gave away a goal after he saved a penalty. So we'll need to be wise in our game management in Europe. That's always going to need to be the case. And hopefully Brendan needs to get experience. He took Leicester to the semi-finals of the Europa Conference League, I believe it was. And he's took them far in Europe. So he knows what it takes. He didn't do too, we've spoke about it before in the podcast. He didn't do too bad with us in his first spell in charge. In reflection, from what he was going into, it was an utter rebuild in his first season. He went through so many rounds of qualifying and still got to the Champions League 2 seasons in a row. Secured some big wins against Anderlecht away, like drew against Man City home. So there's no doubt of his ability to do something for us in Europe. So hopefully we can. Feyenoord away, we're all looking at that game as the one where we can go and get the win and get the group off to a great start, get those 3 points on the board. And I think the group will be tight though. Like, you look at the likes of Atletico, Lazio, they could easily take points off each other. Feyenoord could easily take points off Atletico. It could be one of those ones. Like, I feel like there's always a group in the Champions League where like every team's on 6 points after 3 games or something like that. This could be that one. I think if there is anyone, it could be this one. So we'll just have to wait and see. But it's very exciting this time of year. We've just won the derby. We look forward to the Champions League. Transfer business is done, so I feel like everyone will be looking forward to that final game.
Aye, for sure. And yeah, it could be one of those topsy-turvy groups, because that's what I was thinking on that vein, is like, if we are there, we are on 6 after 2, maybe Atletico are as well,
Yeah.
and then we're playing head, which means they two are playing head to head.
Yeah.
And then somebody might be dead in the water afterwards. Somebody might be on 0-4, so, or equally it could be, as you say, once you get to, I forget which group it was. I think what's the numbers? I think it's 5 points is the funny one. I think it's like 5 points after 4 games is one of those things where the whole group can be locked on.
Yeah.
Because it happened in I think it was Europa League last year with like Midtjylland and maybe Lazio, by the way. I think Lazio might have been as well. So yeah, that could be that could be heart attack material. So not up for
that. I know. It's like, but listen, Celtic are capable. We are capable of doing something. So as much as it'd be entertaining to have that kind of topsy turvy, you'd much rather us be straight out in front in first place. But I don't know if we'll do that.
No. Well, I think that the transfer window was what I think we were all kind of using is some sort of metric, some sort of gauge on the club's ambition in Europe. And we all kind of knew throughout the summer window, until the draw happens, you never really know what your chances are. Because if we got into Group F, we cheered so loud that Newcastle get put into Group F.
Definitely.
Yes.
Definitely.
In which case, if you're in that group, you could spend 100 million on the team, and then you're maybe thinking, maybe we finish third. So
definitely.
It's one of those ones. Maybe we could have pushed a bit harder. I think we should have. I think the squad's definitely missing maybe one player, one magic player, one kind of Jota level, as it were. But the window as a whole, we've done pretty good numbers, as I'm sure the boardroom and the balance sheet people will be very pleased to see. And I did a kind of little breakdown of the transfer window. It'll be on the channel as well, depending on when you listen to this, probably the now. But one thing I kind of think, Josh, when I look across the squad as a whole, is that, we've got like 3 or 4 players to every position, but I'm not convinced that the players we've brought in are the players I would have thought we brought in if the plan is, let's have a shot at the Champions League, let's let the fans dream and do all that kind of stuff that's been kind of coming out at Celtic Park. Transfer window, how do you feel about it?
Listen, when you look at it, I feel like we've brought in a lot of players. Like, before the window started, you wouldn't have expected to lose Carl Starfelt. I feel like you'd maybe have expected one big departure. It was just disappointing that it was Jota, because I think you said it earlier when we were fair, if you put Jota on top of this squad, the squad's absolutely, it is probably ready to compete. That's just the difference that guy makes. He was an absolutely brilliant player for us. But we've brought in, I think I'm looking at it here, we've brought in like 9 players. They're not, you wouldn't say, we've not went out and spent £6-7 million on a player. I think most expensive was Navrosky for 4.3. But at the same time, we've seen Yang so far. I think he certainly does have potential. Mike Navrosky looks solid at the back. I think him and Cameron Carter-Vickers will be the foremost partnership. We brought in Lagerbielke, a centre back who's probably going to be third, fourth choice, depending on what happens in Nat Phillips. We brought in him for a good £2.9 million. So he's one who's going to have potential. Luis Palma, 4.1 million. You've yet to see him. That's the thing I was hoping he would get some minutes off the bench at Ibrox to show what he can do. But he's 23. He's still got room for development, and he got over 20 goal contributions last season in Greece. So he's shown what he can do. Nathaniel Phillips, obviously a loan deal, 6-month loan deal only till January, and then Paulo Bernardo is a midfielder. So Marco Tilio as well. I always forget about Marco Tilio. So obviously he's injured. Probably not going to see him for a while. Hopefully we can see him soon. It'd be great to see what you can do. But hopefully it doesn't end up like Daniel Arzani. You can say that's a kind of lazy comparison all you want, but I think it is the one fans are rushing to. Odin Holmes, another one I've yet to mention. I think he looks like he has potential. I think he came on at the weekend and made a difference. That slide tackle done on Cantwell was very satisfying, to say the least. But when you look at it, like when we brought Jota in, per se, and we brought Karol Starfelt in, Karol Starfelt came from Russia for 4.3 million. We brought in Mike Navrosky from Poland for 4.3 million. The same kind of fee. Obviously, Russia's probably a slightly higher level than Poland. I don't know, but certainly. Then Lagerbielke from Sweden as well. But I feel like when Jota came in, he was from Benfica. He'd had a couple of loan spells. I think he was at Real Valladolid. Didn't do too well, kind of underwhelming in La Liga. Was all right. Never really got his foot in the door at the Benfica first team. More playing in the academy, and obviously, like when he came in, fans weren't like jumping against Celtic Park to go and see him. He was just another young boy we've got in on loan with an option to buy. So there is like guys like Paulo Bernardo. You never know what he's going to come up with. You never know if he could become a player of similar ability and similar influence of Jota. That's the kind of not the gamble you take, because obviously every signing is thought through by the guys at recruitment and like Brendan. But I feel like Brendan said that it's unrealistic for us to go out and spend 15-20 million pounds on a player, but at the same time, maybe someone in the 8-9 million, a kind of marquee signing. We didn't really get one, but we did strengthen all over the park. We strengthened the centre back, who have strengthened in the midfield, signed 3 midfielders. Kwon's another one we've yet to mention. He's really, I don't know if he looks too good. We've only seen him really once. We've brought on several wingers. I think if we were going to strengthen more, I think goalkeeper would have been the position people are crying out for. We've seen Kasper Schmeichel become a free agent at the 11th hour in deadline day, and then left back was one we were also kind of concerned about. But I feel like on the whole, it's probably as a window fans are probably content with. It wasn't one we were overly excited with per se, but at the same time, I think we can be content with where the squad is, and when everyone is fit, we are going to have several players to pick from in each position. Like you look at centre back, you've got a good 5 or 6 players there. Midfield, you've got loads. Out in the wings, we've got loads. Obviously, like we've had a couple of departures as well, like guys like Jetty, Sorrow, Haksabanovic, the kind of undesirables. As you say, they all kind of made their way out to kind of teams of a lesser ilk, like Haksabanovic went to Stoke City. Jetty's went to somewhere in Turkey. I think Sorrow ended up was Israel or something like that. I'm not entirely sure, but we've done all right. I think it's been a decent window. It's not one I'm disappointed with, to be honest, but it's not one I'm like overly excited with, if you know what I mean. We've yet to see a lot of them play as well. Like I've got Paulo Bernardo, Nat Phillips, Luis Palma, even Marco Tilio, and then Kwon. That's like 5 of our summer signings we have yet to see. So and you never know what players can be like when you see them. I like the verdict so far. It's hard to judge guys like Lagerbielke. He's played I think 2 or 3 games. It's hard to judge Yang. It's hard to judge Mike Nawrocki. But I think what we've seen with him so far is the potential is there. We've seen what in flashes what they can do, and the age profile of all the signings is young as well. It's like the model we're looking to buy young for cheap and sell on for a large profit. We're kind of aiming for that. And as much as we can argue we wanted a marquee signing, like I think before the summer Brendan was promised a £30 million war chest for the Champions League or whatever it was. That was the chat in the papers. I think I don't know the total fees that we've spent. I think we've spent a good 17-18 million probably, which is it's not too bad, and I think we can be content with the window. What do you think?
I think it's in the kind of late 20s, the amounts we've spent. Net, we're up like 11 million, but so that's the number I remember. 11-12 million we're definitely in the good for. I don't think it's been like, I don't know, I'm just away to try and find the graphic in case it kind of helps us talk about it a wee bit. But I think when I look at the squad as it sits now, I can put this up so we can see it. I just don't know if I would say it's, and I think we're competitive in this group, don't get me wrong, but when they've laid out their master plans and this is the eventual squad that comes out of it, like it's very deep. And I know the defense is a bit of a firefighting mission, with the injuries that we've had and all the rest of it. But there's just nobody there. I say we're yet to see Palma and Bernardo, granted, right? But like we've seen, the big problem with no Hatate is no Jota, because that's still not really been replaced in the squad. The creation levels is just down. Taking guys on the turn, beating a guy in a 1-on-1, doing something a bit different, playing balls in between the lines. There's just less players that are willing and able and capable of doing that in this squad. And I don't know, the guys, the quality of where we're getting them from, like Palma, Holm, just to wrap them all up in there, medium-sized Gus and, Telio and Yang. Do these guys definitely come into the Champions League picture for a Champions League squad?
Yeah.
I'm not, maybe, but I don't know. So it's one of those ones where I think like the squad looks healthy. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it would really take some strange stuff for us to end up with some of the lineups that Ange put out in his first 6 months
Yeah.
were crazy bad.
Yeah.
You know, Owen Moffat playing and stuff like that. No disrespect to the guy, you know,
Yeah.
but like Juranovic was playing right wing and Abada would be centre forward, and you know, it's all sorts of nonsense that was going on just because of how thin the squad was. So I don't think we're in any jeopardy of that, which is something, I guess. But I think it's clear looking at this that the Jota money hasn't been spent. The kind of leveling up hasn't happened. What do you think as you see that squad there?
I think we've got a lot of names. For a start, I think midfield and centre back are probably the two most kind of strongest areas of the park. Like very busy, very, very like you could put several combinations of players in that. You could probably put 10 different combinations of midfielders and centre backs together with the numbers we have in there. Like obviously even like Yuki Kobayashi's a player I've totally forgot about. Tomoki Iwata. A few people on Saturday night and Twitter, myself included, were like potentially wanting Iwata to start at the weekend and have him, McGregor, and O'Reilly as the midfield three. Like he's won Brendan. I don't even know if Brendan fancies him at all. Like we've seen him last season under Ange. He was actually all right. He came in kind of January time. I don't know if it's January just there he came in. Obviously he was all right. He didn't kind of under impress. He was decent, but he's one in the squad where we're not entirely sure of what his place is. But even on the wings, we're so busy as well. Like Daizen, Abada, Yang, Forrest, Palma, Tilio, like even obviously Mikey Johnson, Rocco Vata are there, but we've got numbers everywhere. But it's like when I read out those wingers there, is there one, like you said, of an ilk of Jota that's going to do what he could do, but at the same time, then you've got the argument: is Abada going to improve? We've not really seen the likes of Yang, Palma, Tilio yet. Is Daizen going to improve? Certainly not with one of his crosses at the weekend. But he did track back and do his job defensively as well. But I don't know if there's a similar out. There's players that have improved. Certainly under Brendan. Matthew O'Reilly been absolutely tremendous under the new manager. I'd like to see Liel Abada improve more. And we've yet to see what Palma can bring. We've yet to see what Tilio can bring. Before Jota came in, no one knew he would turn out to be the player he was. So that's the kind of argument you could have. But I guess you never know.
I think in terms of the forward line potentially leveling up, depending on your age, you might remember this. But like when Messi and Pep's Barcelona first emerged, everyone said for the first year or two, they only score tap-ins. They're rubbish. They're not even. It's maybe some people even tried to say it was like anti-football for a little while, if you know what I mean. Like because it was just they're scoring tap-ins and cutbacks from 5 yards out. That's all they do.
Yeah.
Messi's not that great, and all the rest of it. That happens for a little while. Might not have been that loud, anyway. But if we play that way, think about the amount of times in that derby match we should have been squaring it for tap-ins.
Yeah.
See if we are ruthlessly tapping the ball in, then we actually probably have an elite front three to do that.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, but we're not tapping them in, really, are we?
I feel like as a whole, you look at the combination of Daizen, Kyogo and Abada, or whether it be Palma, Kyogo and Abada, if the front three can work together and work as a unit, not so much as individuals, then certainly, like you say, the kind of tap-in kind of football could work. Like Daizen getting to the byline, cutting it back, Kyogo tap-in, Abada getting to the byline, cutting it back, Abada crossing to the back post for Daizen to knock it in, cutting it back for like guys like O'Reilly, Rio making third man runs into the box. So I feel like there is, if the front three, if they can work together and get partnerships and units going, then certainly we could see that develop. But at the same time, it could be hard to build those partnerships and kind of relationships and connections on the park when you've got so many numbers and like the amount of times it's probably going to be rotated. Obviously, we read out the fixture schedule earlier. Like, rarely it's going to be the same front three starting all the time. There's going to be changes. There's going to be alterations. But we'll just have to wait and see what happens with this squad. There's still a lot of signs that we've yet to judge fully. It's only September. We signed 3 last week and none of them have played, so we can't really comment on them yet. But like I said, we'll just have to wait and see how the players do when they get on the park. But from the outside looking in, on paper, like we've shown, there's not a Jota in the squad. But we've yet to discover the talents of Bernardo, Palma, Tellio, Yang fully yet.
And I'd maybe even put O into that. I think O could be.
Yeah,
O could
definitely.
be handy as well.
Yeah, certainly. He came off the bench at the weekend and done his job fully. I feel like certainly when O comes on, it's like that's us holding out now. Punt it up to O. Big man holds it in, wins fouls and stuff. But at the same time, he can play a bit of football. He's quite silky sometimes.
He holds it outside the foot pass, doesn't he?
He does. So I think, especially like towards the end of last season, his goal record was really good. He scored. Yeah. He scored twice at Easter Road, and then I think he bagged twice in the final day, trophy day. So he has the talent. I think maybe he's been slightly forgotten about because of his injury. So hopefully he's someone we can see utilised.
Aye. I think he could be a real good weapon in the Champions League, for that second session, because he's a battering ram. You know what I mean? And if you can catch a Feyenoord or a Lazio, whatever, in transition, and you've got Big O, bullying them, then yes, that's probably a good point to kind of leave the transfer window off. Is like they're probably, I suppose internally there must be, I suppose it's about giving faith. I suppose that Kyogo is going to make a Champions League appearance this season. It means some, O'Reilly's got that in his bag, so does Hatate. And then we're just hoping the rest of the team's well oiled. So thoroughly impressed with that. And I guess probably the kind of last thing we're kind of all talking about and looking at this point of this little putting the feet up period, Josh, is the international break. Now, there's a few guys that I know are definitely away, but like you say, there's been so many incomings and outgoings. I've forgotten who to care about international-wise anymore. I have to double check on. So also Haksabanovic is away, so we don't need to worry about following Montenegro anymore or paying attention to that. And one or two others perhaps, but have you got a wee DL? You got a wee list of who is away for us?
So we have obviously closest to home, Kalmak, who's the only player who got called up for Scotland, which is quite surprising in my opinion. Obviously, we've seen like Greg Taylor get minutes and stuff like that for the team, like David Turnbull, all the likes of them play. But it's only Kalmak who's get called up, which could be positive for us in a sense. You're not having to worry about guys like that getting injured. Over in Asia, we've got Kyogo and Maeda playing for Japan. Ryo Hatate obviously injured, didn't get a call. And I did Tomoki. Two players playing for South Korea as well, Yang and O. Then Kwon's playing for their under-23s. Abada playing for Israel. Lagerbielke for Sweden. Holmes playing for Norway's under-21s. Palma's playing for Honduras. And I believe that is it.
So Palma's away halfway across the world. He just came from Greece, took some pictures in the kit, got a VIP seat to Ibrox, and now he's away back to Honduras to do that. And then
Paulo Bernardo for Portugal under 21 is another one. That's the last one.
And wee PB as well. He's away. He's away doing his thing. Youth internationals are always fun to kind of pay attention to. We've had a lot of good youth internationals at Celtic over the last kind of 10 years or so, particularly in France, obviously. Interesting. I'm really hoping, particularly for Dyson and Kyogo, that they do travel extremely safe and they don't come back with any fatigue or any knock. And the Japanese national team have been pretty good with looking after guys, haven't they? I actually think coming into this window, coming into this window, this is probably the best international window. Maybe McGregor might get some rest because Billy Gilmore's be coming into a game and we're in a really strong position in the group, Cyprus away. And then, maybe McGregor doesn't play, maybe he actually does get a wee bit of, get the feet up, which would be nice for him.
Potentially, good to see Callum. Like, he's a couple of years ago, he was a footballer in world football, played the most minutes. So good to see him. Hopefully, could get a wee rest. The England game is a friendly, so there's going to be unlimited subs for Scotland in that one. I think it's good for the Japanese boys that they're only going to Germany. Japan's games are in Germany this time around, so they're not travelling halfway across the world, which is good.
Fantastic.
I'm not sure about the South Korean national team, where their games are and things like that, but there's obviously Palmer's going away back to South America. I think he's playing in like CONCACAF qualifiers or something like that for Honduras, and then obviously we've got the under-21s home and Bernardo. So I think everyone always keeps an eye on how the national team players do, but I think this is probably the least number we've had in recent times. To be honest, like usually you're just seeing like Ali Johnson go to Canada. Obviously he's not in this time around because he's just come back from injury. I don't think Canada are playing actually. I looked at that the other day. We've got like you usually see Juranovic going to Croatia, Giacomakis going to Greece, Haksabanovic going to Montenegro, but obviously this time around it's not happening. Nawrocki obviously is injured. He might get called up to Poland. Carter Vickers might get called up to the USA if he was fit. Hatate went to Germany with the Japan squad. And he's been kind of unfortunate enough to get his call up this time around. But no, I think it's good for Celtic with the lesser players playing for us on the international level better. But it'll be an interesting one. Scotland could secure the ticket to Germany this time around. It'd be great to see that happen. We might get a couple of players, and we'll have quite a few players at the 2024 Euros next summer. Obviously, if Scotland get there, we'll have McGregor, and then maybe a couple of more players could push their way into the squad, like your Greg Taylors or David Turnbull's. But yeah, this will be a fun international break. It always is. It's a chance again for the likes of us to kind of put our feet up and watch some good football. Yeah, I like the international break sometimes. It's a good stopgap, and like especially at the start of the season when things are starting to get busy, it's a kind of good downtime for everyone. And obviously we'll have players who are just staying at Lennoxtown and continuing training. Like Liam Scales will still be there. Matt O'Reilly didn't get called up for any of the Denmark squads, so I don't think he's eligible for the 21s anymore. He's 22 now and he's not been called up to the senior Denmark squad. Yeah, it'll be a fun international break.
Yeah, it's good to think about. In fact, the amount that will be staying is particularly not. It feels like all the wingers and forwards are all kind of away in one way, shape, or form. You know, but in terms of like midfield defence or whatever, so good time to be spent. You know, I think there was pictures of Brendan sleeping on the airplane. He's going away to Mallorca, back to his villa for a few days or something. So I'm sure everyone's away having fun for a few, but I'm sure for the guys that didn't get the international call up, I did check Ireland. Scales didn't get the call up. If you think maybe man of the match at Ibrox, that's an automatic criteria to get in the squad, but no, apparently not. So yeah, it'll be very interesting to see what how the players kind of develop out, and I'm looking forward to seeing maybe any wee pictures that come out from Celtic on Twitter and Instagram and whatever.
Yeah.
See who's training, see who's showing up, and all that kind of stuff, because it's been expected that Tate should start to emerge back into training, kind of newish, maybe to come back for the Dundee match in preparation. It'd be great if we could play. The Tate could get 60-70 minutes against Dundee before we go away at Feyenoord. I think we would all be really confident about that game.
Definitely. That'd be big, especially having him back. I think I seen on Twitter some guy on Twitter met Carter Vickers the other day in a shop, and he asked him how long back, 3 to 4 weeks. So, don't know, 3 to 4 weeks from now. What are we on? Beginning of September. So you never know by this time next month, which is round about the Lazio home game. He'll be back. So that'd be positive. But it should be a good international break. I think in total we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 players. 11 players away. I think at times we've had 14, 15 before. So it's good. It's decent. Like, you might see as well players getting called into the squads for injuries. Like, if, say, Ireland get an injury at a centre-half, you never know, Scales could come into the squad. Like, if, say, one of Robbo or KT gets injured for Scotland, Greg Taylor might get called in. So, you never know. We'll just see we'll just have to see what happens over the coming weeks.
And I think you said you're going to go to the England game yourself, Josh?
Yeah. Hopefully, I've got a ticket, so hopefully we can get a result there.
You'll be there causing it?
Certainly. It's always I'll be there right next to England fans, giving them the finger. Sorry if you're any English Celtic fans watching this podcast. But no, hopefully Scotland can get the win against England, maybe secure Euro 2024 qualifying. Hopefully all the Celtic players who are out on international duty can do well for us.
What happens in the international break stays in the international break, Josh. That's the way we think about it.
Yep.
Certainly. Look at it. Certainly. If anyone's going to any of the games for the Tartan Army, stay safe, have fun, and hail. We'll see you next week.
Yep, see you later.